97 bikes roared through the city like thunder wrapped in chrome, each rider wearing the same black patch, each bound by a promise. Inside the hospital, a terrified girl clutched her bedsheet and whispered, "He's coming." She didn't know that outside, an army of brothers had already answered, engines growling in unison, headlights cutting the storm, ready to make sure her stepfather never made it through those doors alive. The night shift at County General crawled by under buzzing fluorescent lights. Rain smeared the windows, lightning flashing just enough to show the empty parking lot. Nurse Rebecca Hayes checked the vitals on a sleeping teenage girl, then glanced at the chart again. Lily Cooper, 16, multiple bruises, broken wrist. The line under guardian made her stomach turn. Morrison Cooper, stepfather. Rebecca pulled the blanket a little higher over the girl's shoulder. Outside the door, a uniformed officer stood guard, but he wasn't there for protection. He was waiting for Morrison's signature. When he handed over custody, the girl would be forced right back into the same hands that had hurt her. Rebecca whispered, "Not again," and stepped into the empty hallway. The hum of machines sounded like a heartbeat in her ears. At the nurse's station, she dialed a number she hadn't used in years. 3 rings. A voice, gravel and calm. "Yeah?" "It's Rebecca Hayes," she said, "from St. Mary's. You remember Anna Cooper?" Silence on the other end, then a quiet breath. "I remember." "Her daughter's here," Rebecca said. "Her husband. He's comin'. He has papers." "Where are you?" "County General." Another pause, shorter this time. "How bad?" "She's scared. Says he'll finish what he started." The voice dropped lower. "What room?" 213. Rebecca hesitated. "Hawk. She's just a kid." "I know." The line clicked dead. In a small garage 30 miles away, a man everyone simply called Hawk stared at the silent phone. He set down his wrench, wiped grease off his hands, and looked up at the photo taped to the wall. A woman laughing beside a younger version of himself. Anna Cooper. He whispered, "You kept me alive once." Outside, rain hit the roof like drumming fingers. Hawk pulled on his jacket, the black patch of the road saints gleaming faintly under the single light. He opened the garage door, the storm washing the air with cold clarity. His engine roared awake, echoing through the valley. At another end of the state, in bars, garages, and parking lots, phones buzzed. A single message lit every screen. Family call, County General, ride. Engines flared to life, one after another. The sound traveled like a heartbeat across the dark. 97 riders, all wearing the same black patch, answered without a word. Back at the hospital, Rebecca checked the clock. Midnight. The officer at the door scrolled through his phone, bored. In the bed, Lily stirred, whispering, "He's coming." Rebecca brushed her hair back gently. "Not tonight, sweetheart. Not this time." Outside, distant thunder rolled closer, not from the storm, but from engines gathering speed on the highway, and when Hawk's headlight cut through the rain, the promise Anna made him 15 years ago was finally being kept. The first bike skidded into the hospital parking lot, headlights blazing against the glass doors. Rain came down in silver threads, hissing against asphalt. By the time Hawk reached the interstate, half a dozen bikes had fallen in behind him. Their headlamps cut through the night in a single white line, the thunder of engines echoing off the valley walls. He tapped his mic. "Saints, roll call." Voices answered one by one. Chains, Widow, Rex, Copper, Cruz, each name a promise, not a sound. 97 riders in total, scattered across counties now moving as one. In small towns, windows rattled as the convoy passed. A trucker pulled over to watch, whispering, "That ain't no gang. That's a storm." Back at County General, Rebecca paced by the nurse's station. She could feel the hum under her feet, though no one else heard it yet. Lily lay awake, staring at the ceiling. "He's on his way, isn't he?" the girl asked. Rebecca forced a smile. "Someone else is, too." She glanced out the window. Empty parking lot, rain flicking off the glass, and whispered, "Please hurry." Miles away, Morrison's SUV fishtailed through puddles, headlights slicing through fog. He slapped the steering wheel, muttering curses. "Mine. She's mine." His lawyer's voice echoed in his head. "Get there first. Sign the papers. She can't fight custody." The man smiled to himself, cruel and certain. Hawk throttled down at a crossroads. More bikes joined from the side road, roaring into formation. He signaled once, 2 fingers in the air, and the convoy tightened. Chrome glinted under the highway lights, black patches gleamed with the white skull of the road saints. They weren't speeding. They were moving with purpose, a wall of sound that warned the world to step aside. Beside Hawk, Widow called out over the wind, "We sure about this, boss? Hospitals bring cops." Hawk's reply was calm. "Cops don't scare me. Men who hurt children do." The others nodded. No more words, just the hum of engines, the rhythm of rain. At the hospital, Rebecca's phone buzzed. Unknown number. She answered. "Room 213, Hawk said. "Windows facing the parking lot." "Yes." "Keep her away from them. We'll be there before he is." The line went dead again. Rebecca turned to Lily. "Sweetheart, can you walk?" The girl nodded. They moved her to a room deeper inside, lights dimmed, machines steady. Down the hall, the officer at the door frowned, feeling a vibration underfoot. Then came the distant rumble, low, rolling, growing louder until the walls trembled. The first bikes appeared out of the rain, headlights like comets streaking through fog. One after another, they turned into the hospital driveway, engines idling in perfect sync. Water streamed off leather jackets and steel boots. No one spoke. They simply took their positions, flanking entrances, lining the curb, watching the road. Hawk cut his engine last. He removed his helmet, rain running down his face like war paint, and looked up at the glass facade of County General. Inside, Rebecca met his eyes through the window and finally exhaled. He nodded once. The promise had arrived. A pair of headlights turned the corner fast, Morrison's SUV skidding toward the entrance. Morrison's SUV fishtailed to a stop, tires spraying rain across the hospital steps. He shoved the door open, face red, papers clenched in one fist. Behind the glass doors, the security guard hesitated. He'd never seen so many men waiting in silence. 97 bikes stood in perfect formation, engines off but heat still rising from the chrome. Steam curled into the air like smoke from a fuse. Hawk stepped forward, coat dripping, eyes flat as steel. "Hospital's closed," he said. Morrison barked a bitter laugh. "I've got custody papers. You think some thugs are going to stop me?" Hawk didn't blink. "You've got a history that says you shouldn't be within 10 feet of her." "I'm her father." "You're her excuse for fear," Hawk said softly. The man swung his arm to push past. Chains and Widow moved before he touched the door. 2 walls of leather and muscle, silent, unmoving. The sound of rain against their jackets was the only reply. Inside, through the glass, Rebecca appeared at the nurse's desk. She shook her head once. Morrison caught the motion and slammed a fist against the door. "Open it! She's mine!" A few of the riders' helmets turned. Their stillness was more threatening than any shout. The automatic doors hissed as Hawk stepped closer, stopping inches away. The fluorescent light above them flickered. Thunder rolled overhead. "You ever hear what a promise sounds like?" Hawk asked quietly. "It's louder than a slap, longer than a bruise." Morrison sneered. "You think a bunch of bikers scare me? I've got cops who owe me favors." Hawk's voice stayed calm. "Call them." He nodded to Copper. The man opened his phone, pressed a button. Across the street, a cruiser idled, its officer watching. The cop lifted 2 fingers in silent recognition of the road saints. Morrison's words died halfway up his throat. Hawk leaned closer. "You step inside that door, and you'll have to walk through all of us first. And we don't move for men who hurt girls." Rain pattered harder. Morrison's jaw twitched, the papers in his hand wilting under the water. He looked around, realizing he wasn't facing criminals, he was facing conviction itself. Inside, Lily peeked from behind Rebecca, eyes wide. The nurse, who whispered, "He's not getting through." Hawk heard her through the glass and gave the faintest nod. Then he turned back to Morrison. "Go home. Find a lawyer who'll teach you what the word guardian really means." For a moment it seemed Morrison might lunge anyway, but the low rumble of nearly 100 engines restarting froze him. Headlights flared, framing him in white. He stepped back, muttering curses lost under the roar. His SUV fishtailed again as he sped away into the storm. Hawk watched until the taillights vanished. Then he tapped his mic. "Saints, stand down. Phase 2. Watch the exits." Inside, Rebecca smiled for the first time that night. The girl's heartbeat monitor slowed, steady now. Outside, Hawk turned his collar against the rain. The fight wasn't over, not yet. He knew a man like Morrison didn't quit. He just came back louder. A police siren wailed in the distance, coming closer this time. Blue and red light strobed across the rain-slick parking lot as the first patrol cars pulled in. The wail of sirens faded to a nervous hum. Officers stepped out, hands hovering near radios, eyes moving between the line of parked bikes and the quiet hospital entrance. Hawk waited beneath the awning, coat dripping, calm as stone. When the senior officer approached, he spoke first. "Evening, Captain." "Evening," the cop answered carefully. "Got reports of a standoff." Hawk nodded toward the automatic doors. "Only man causing trouble just drove off. There's a girl inside who needs peace, not paperwork." The officer hesitated. He knew that name, Road Saints. Not a gang, not exactly. They did their damage out in deserts and then spent years repairing what they broke. Tonight they looked less like criminals and more like a wall built out of loyalty. Inside, Rebecca sat across from a detective in the staff lounge. Her voice was steady but low. "She came in 2 nights ago. Fractured wrist, ribs, bruising along the back. She said she fell. I didn't believe her. Now you've seen who she's scared of." The detective jotted notes. "Can you verify prior complaints?" Rebecca opened the hospital file. 3 old ER visits, each marked accident. She slid them across the table. "I think we both know better." Morrison's SUV didn't make it far. Police intercepted him 2 blocks away after a call from dispatch flagged his name. By the time they brought him back, his temper had burned down to exhaustion. Handcuffs clicked as he stepped out, rain flattening his hair. Hawk didn't move when they escorted the man inside. The biker simply looked at him, quiet, unreadable. Rebecca appeared from the corridor, Lily behind her clutching a blanket. The detective spoke clearly, voice for the record. "Mr. Cooper, you're being detained pending investigation of assault and child endangerment." Morrison turned on Rebecca. "You think those animals scare me? You think this is over?" She didn't answer. Lily did. In a voice barely above a whisper. "It is for me." That line broke something in the room. The officer guiding Morrison hesitated just long enough for everyone to hear the truth settle. Minutes later, paperwork replaced shouting. Statements, signatures, formalities. Hawk leaned against the wall, silent until the detective turned toward him. "You realize half the precinct saw those bikes on radar tonight?" "Then half the precinct knows what family looks like," Hawk said. He pulled a small envelope from his pocket and handed it over. Photocopies of Anna Cooper's medical records, proving years of abuse covered up by the same man. The detective studied them, then met his eyes. "You came prepared." "I came to finish a promise." He turned toward Lily. "Your mom saved me once," he said softly. "I owed her this." Lily nodded, tears mixing with rainwater on her cheeks. "Thank you." Hawk gave a faint smile. "You won't need me again. That's how I'll know it worked." Outside, the engines started one by one, not loud this time. just enough to echo like a heartbeat across the wet street. Rebecca watched from the doorway as Hawk swung onto his bike. The detective stood beside her, murmuring, "You think they'll come back?" She shook her head. "They come only when you call for help." The convoy rolled into the distance, taillights fading into the mist. Behind them, inside County General, the truth was finally written down, and the sound that replaced the storm was the steady rhythm of a young girl sleeping without fear. At dawn, headlines would call them outlaws, until the footage told another story. By sunrise, the story had already escaped the hospital walls. Phones had caught the rumble of engines, the flash of badges, the sight of one frightened girl surrounded by an army of riders. Every feed replayed it. 97 bikers stand guard for a child. Hawk didn't watch the news. He sat on the hood of his truck outside an old warehouse, helmet beside him, steam rising from a paper cup of coffee. One by one, the others rolled in, engines cooling, eyes still heavy from the night. Chains broke the silence. "You think they'll call us heroes?" Hawk shook his head. "They'll call us trouble. Heroes make people feel small. Trouble just makes them honest." At County General, reporters crowded the front steps. Rebecca stepped out shielding Lily from the cameras. Flashbulbs flared, questions overlapping. Were they armed? Did they threaten police? Is it true the stepfather's in custody? Rebecca kept moving. She's safe. That's all that matters. Inside, the detective from the night before watched the chaos through the glass doors. "They don't understand," he muttered. "Without them, that man would have walked her right out." Across town, Morrison sat in a holding cell, the hangover of rage turning to panic. The morning paper lay on the bench. Local girl saved by biker brotherhood. He crushed it in his fist, but the sound was small now. Smaller than thunder, smaller than a promise kept. When Hawk finally walked into the precinct to give his statement, the room went quiet. The detective nodded toward a chair. "You caused quite a scene." Hawk sat calm. "Scene's over. Just make sure the ending sticks." "You know," the detective said, sliding a folder across the desk, "you could be charged with interference." Hawk looked at the folder, then at him. "Go ahead, but make sure you write the rest of it, that a man with a badge stood by while a girl begged for help. Write that part, too." The detective exhaled, closed the folder, and pushed it aside. "Get out of here, Torino." Hawk smiled faintly. "Already gone." Back at the warehouse, the road saints lined up their bikes in rows like soldiers dismissed. Hawk climbed onto a crate and looked at the faces staring back. Grease-stained, rain-tired, loyal. "You did what most men wouldn't," he said. "You showed up. That's all a promise ever asks." Widow raised his hand. "What now, boss?" Hawk pulled his helmet on. "Now we ride home. Let the noise fade. Let the girl sleep." Engines growled to life, one by one. The echo bounced off the concrete, then softened into the morning wind. Lily watched them from the hospital window, her wrist in a cast, a faint smile forming. Rebecca stood beside her. "Who are they?" she asked. Rebecca smiled. "The kind of people who remember." As the convoy disappeared down the highway, the world would argue about what to call them. Vigilantes, criminals, saviors. Hawk didn't care. For him, it was simple. The promise was paid. That night, a letter arrived at the biker garage. Handwritten, sealed with hospital tape. Inside, 3 words. "Thank you, family." A week later, the sky looked cleaner, like the storm had taken every sound with it. The city had gone back to its usual hum, but people still whispered about that night, about the roar that shook the hospital windows and the girl who slept through her fear for the first time in years. Lily walked out of County General with her cast hidden under the sleeve of a borrowed leather jacket. The back patch read Road Saints, the same symbol that had once filled her nightmares with engine noise and now felt like a shield. Rebecca waited beside her, smiling as the sound of engines rolled in softly from down the road. The convoy had returned, not in fury this time, but in quiet pride. 97 bikes, polished by rain and sunrise, idled at the curb. Hawk dismounted first, removing his helmet, gray hair streaked by wind. "You ready to go home?" he asked. Lily looked around. "Where's home now?" Rebecca answered gently. "Where people keep you safe." Hawk handed her a folded piece of paper. "It's a new address. You'll stay with Rebecca for a while, then with a family that understands. Promises." Lily nodded, holding the note like it was gold. "Will I ever see you again?" Hawk crouched to meet her eyes. "Only if you call." They rode together one last time. The girl sat in the sidecar, wind lifting her hair, city skyline fading behind them. Other riders flanked the road, headlights shining steady, formation perfect. Cars slowed to watch, drivers unsure whether to fear or salute. Rebecca followed in her small sedan, tears blurring her vision each time she glanced at the girl laughing in the mirror. The convoy stopped at a farmhouse on the edge of town. A woman stepped out to greet them, soft-voiced, open-armed, a foster worker Rebecca trusted. Lily slid out of the sidecar, clutching her small backpack. "Thank you," she said, looking up at the men who had turned a nightmare into a memory. Hawk smiled faintly. "Don't thank me. Thank the woman who raised me right enough to pick up the phone." He nodded to Rebecca, and she understood. It was over. When they started their engines again, the sound was lighter, almost musical. One by one, they turned back toward the highway, splitting into smaller groups until only Hawk's tail light remained. Lily watched from the porch until the sound disappeared. "They really ride for people?" she asked. Rebecca placed a hand on her shoulder. "Only when it matters." That night, Hawk sat alone in the garage. The rain had stopped. The city was quiet. He opened a letter sealed with hospital tape. 3 words written in a shaky hand. "Thank you, family." He smiled to himself, folded it carefully, and tucked it into the pocket of his jacket. Outside, the moonlight caught the chrome of his bike. He swung his leg over, engine growling awake just once before cutting it again. "Ride safe, kid," he murmured. In the silence that followed, the world finally sounded balanced. If you heard that call for help, would you ride?